Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Stooges in Middle Earth. I'm Smitty and I'm joined by my best buddy Nick. Nick, how are you doing this week?
I am doing wonderful. Tired of all the snow we're getting, but that's all right. I'm inside in the warmth.
Awesome. And have you been working on anything this past week?
I've still been working a little bit on that Raptor that I had started on last week, but I do have my footnights of Dolan Roth in front of me that I might start working on cutting out of screws here tonight.
And you know what would be interesting? A couple Raptors in Middle Earth. That's
That would definitely... I wonder how that would go over. You got the magic in Middle Earth to help counterbalance the Raptors.
Some Middle Earth and Jurassic Park action. That'd be an interesting combination. Well, anyway, we have a fun-filled episode packed with some great content for you guys, so let's get into it. I'm going to start with the beacons are lit and Gondor calls for aid, and we're here for your aid. Any new players out there, this is kind of for you guys, tips and tricks and kind of things that we follow, Discords, Facebook groups, things like that, how we get some of our questions answered. So I want to first start out with the Discord that we follow, right, Nick? I think that's the. Don't quite remember the name of it.
I can look up the name of the Discord.
I think it's actually a tabletop simulator Discord.
Yeah, I got my phone in front of me here. So if anybody has not done Discord, it's actually very, very useful. Let's see, what do I got? We do have our own Discord, by the way, Strategy Game Stooges. Contact us on, it doesn't matter, Facebook, Instagram. If you need to know, we can get you the link. So the Discord is actually Middle Earth SBG Simulator. About 1,000 members in there.
Yeah, and they got a lot of the books out there, almost all of the supplements out there. They got... actually, I think they have every single supplement. They have the Army's books. They have the rules manual, the match play guide, and this is kind of our keeping the coin in our own pocket. We kind of use these instead of necessarily shelling out to get the good, nice books. But it's kind of nice to have a digital version and a hardcover version. That way, you got 2 of them, 3 of them.
It is, and we do have a hardcover version of it. It's just sometimes nice having it on the phone to go back to. But we generally always have the book there with, because I know some people like the book and some people like the digital version, but we kind of use back and forth.
Right.
But yeah, and they also have some of the old. Where is it? I can't remember.
They have
where
the
it is
first
now.
edition archives. So
yes.
like when things started to come out back in the day, they have some of those out there. They also have some of they used to have all of the White Dwarfs, the newer White Dwarfs out there, but they actually just have some of the Middle Earth articles from the White Dwarfs that are pretty interesting to read. They used to have, I think they're kind of getting attacked a little bit by obviously having some of this stuff out there that's more IP-like. And they're still doing a really great job of keeping the PDF files out there. They used to actually have the ebooks and things like you could download directly to your library. But I've just been saving the PDFs to my library, which isn't all that bad. There's just not as big of a table of contents with those PDFs, but it still works pretty great. You got every single page, and like I said, it's definitely a good reference guide for anybody new out there that needs to look at a profile and they can't necessarily get a hold of the book and things like that. So I definitely recommend you guys downloading that. I think when we do post some of these videos and some of the things that this podcast and some of the things that we talk about, I think it'd probably be good to put some of those links in the upload, right? I think that's possible.
Yeah, we should be able to. I'll double check with Daniel, our upload guy, but yeah, we should be able to get some of those links in there.
Awesome. And then on another note, so this Discord's kind of got a lot of the main Games Workshop content, but then we also follow quite a few groups on Facebook. The main ones that I follow are the Great British Hobby League, Zorpa Gaming Community, and the Lord of the Rings Miniatures Rock Middle Earth Strategy Battle Game. Do you follow any additional ones to that?
I have a few. I can't remember their names offhand. Great British Hobbit League is the main one I go. The Lord of the Rings Miniatures Rocks, and yes, I'm in the Zorpa one. There's one other one. I feel like I just recently joined it.
There's another Middle-earth strategy battle game one. That one only has 2,500 members. But it's really interesting, though, that I've noticed is the biggest group, at least dedicated to Middle-earth strategy battle game, is that Miniatures Rock one. And that one's got 12,000 members in it. And it's crazy to think about that the largest group is only 12,000 members. But it's still definitely a very much growing game. But
it is. And it's, well, it's not just, if you think about it, with gameplay, it's very similar to 40K. Okay, it's not very similar, but you get the idea. It's a Games Workshop thing. So if you take Games Workshop and their whole brands, not only are you, Games Workshop has a lot of people out there now, but they're not a super big mainstream thing. So it's a niche market in a niche market, in a sense, is the way I view some of the Lord of the Rings stuff.
Right, absolutely. And the other thing about these groups is not only can you ask your questions there, obviously there's the FAQs and things like that are on the Warhammer community page, but they obviously all those don't answer all the questions, right? And every single time we play, I think we've came up with, a question or two that here and there that definitely feels like we need to ask the community here and there. So these things are definitely good for asking, getting your questions out of the way and things like that. And I've never came across anybody rude on any of these pages. Some of the 3D printing pages I follow, man, will eat you alive for certain questions. But the hobby community for Middle-earth strategy battle game is just phenomenal.
We have had quite a few questions that we've had answered in this group. And we generally always get the answer. I can't remember of a time that we asked a question that we didn't get the answer.
Yeah, we get the answers, and we get duplicates of the answers from different people verifying the other people that are. So I mean, and the other thing is the Great British Hobbit League, right? That's obviously Great Britain, right? And UK folks, we're obviously US based. But the reason why I actually follow them, probably some of the most, is that within that discussion group is a lot of people that actually work for Games Workshop. And it's really cool when you post some certain question, and then you see some of the people that show up in the White Dwarf magazine and some of the people that show up on Warhammer community actually answering your questions firsthand. That is fantastic support from that product team.
It is, and there's even stuff, even though they have the different FAQs and the updates and all that stuff to the rules, you'll even find in those groups stuff that's not in an official FAQ, but you'll find some of the developers or writers that they clarify it even further, which is awesome. How many games, maybe I just don't know enough about games out there, but it doesn't seem like that's a common thing that you can go in there and have the actual guys who wrote the rule say, no, actually, this is exactly what I meant in the rule.
Exactly, correct, yeah. And so just to build on that, some of the recent questions that I had asked within that group is, I run Isengard quite a bit. And I actually just got the newer Saruman model, and he comes with the Palantir. I think I'm saying that right? I don't think there's anything else.
Yeah,
I'm terrible with some of the Lord of the Rings grammar, but I would be the Palantir ball, right, to look into what Sauron's looking at and all those other things. And so with that special thing, his special ability, right, he's able to use the Palantir to basically gain priority for a turn where he could have potentially lost priority, and it's good for situations where you definitely need priority. And my question was, okay, the new Saruman model comes with this awesome Palantir, right? And does it actually need to be on the board? Do you need to be close to it to use it? It's just interesting that it's a model, and it doesn't really speak too much about it. But the fact of the matter is that actually doesn't need to be on the board in order to be used, and it's kind of more of just a fun model to have. But to a point, people were saying that they always forget to use it, and what they were saying is kind of keep it out down on the board, but next to you to remind yourself to actually physically use it. Because I saw quite a few people are like, I was in a tournament and I had this thing and I didn't even use it, and it could have changed the entire game, right?
Yeah, that I know what that's like. There's plenty of times I play games and I forget to use stuff. So yeah, if you can put a model out there, I don't think you've ever even used that in a game, have you?
No, yeah, I actually have not. I've got my Saruman's painted, but I actually have not painted that up yet. But the other thing is that it was interesting to see that one doesn't actually have to be on the board, but the Lady Gladriel, what is that? The looking.
The mirror, Gladriel's right? Mirror.
Yeah, that actually has to be on the board to be used.
Yes.
Which is what my confusion was.
Do you remember what that mirror does, though? Isn't it kind of a passive type buff that you get?
Yeah, I'd have to look that guy up. I actually don't play the elves that much. It's normally, Daniel's forte.
Because I thought it was something similar to like how you have a banner carrier. You have to be within so many inches. I don't know if you would consider that passive necessarily, but I kind of view it as passive, that it's not something that you're actively choosing. It's just there. You just have to be within space of it, and then it just kind of passively is affecting you.
Right. That's a lot of because there's like active and passive special rules, right? So I think that one could fall under that passive part of the special rules. The other question that not so much recently, but the last game that we've actually played, I think the question came up, right, is people that have magic, right, such as, say, let's talk about Gandalf, right, because I think it was Gandalf that we were using against the Nazgul on Fell Beasts, right, and you cast the magic during your movement phase, and basically,
yes,
Gandalf says he's on Shadowfax, right, so he gets... I think Shadowfax is 12 inches, or is it 10? I know it's a little bit further than
10 inches is the normal, isn't it, for a horse?
Yeah, I thought Shadowfax was always a little bit faster.
I believe you're right.
But, yeah.
I never played with Shadowfax, so I'm just going by normal horses should be 10 inches. So, if he's faster, I would say 12.
That's my best painted model.
Yeah. It's, just don't break the staff, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've already done that twice. I've had to redo it twice. Cry every time it happens, but, but anyway, so basically what happens is we had the situation where, we're not in range of his 18-inch magic, so we move Shadowfax 6 inches forward, and then cast his magic, and then move him 4 inches back, right? And we had gotten into a little bit of a spat if that was actually legal or not, and it turns out to be that's exactly what you're supposed to use magic for. You're supposed to move up, get line of sight, cast your spell, and then hide behind something. Get out of sight again, which is a really fantastic strategy. So
exactly,
and it makes sense that would be a strategy, because I mean it's a strategy battle game. Like those are kind of things that just completely make sense.
Now, do you remember? Hopefully you do. If you were to charge somebody, you have to have line of sight to them before you can actually charge. So even though if they're behind a wall, you can move your model, but even though moving your model then allows your model to have line of sight of them, you can't charge because when you started your turn, you didn't have line of sight. I believe with magic, though, you don't necessarily have to have that line of sight. It's just your movement. So you could have it in a position where you can't charge a model, even though obviously we're human beings that are standing above the table, so you see all the angles. When you go down to the viewpoint of the models, you can have it where, based on the rules, that you can't charge a model. But with your magic, you could move yourself to position where you can still attack that model, where normally you would not be able to.
Correct.
Which is a huge advantage of having magic, because there have been a number of times where we've been in position where we couldn't attack, because even though we could reach the model, we didn't have line of sight, where that's another aspect to keep in mind when you're using magic, to remember that you can jump through there, even though if you can't charge them, if you have magic, you can still do something to them. And maybe you can, isn't transfix is the ones, I've never really played with a character with magic, because I've mostly just been Gondor, which doesn't really have magic, and I've never played with Gandalf in that army list. But you could potentially transfix the model so he can't attack you, which if he's in, you can kind of do that to pin him back there for an extra turn to buy you some time. Right.
There's immobilize. You can actually take over that enemy model and actually move him during his movement phase. And those are also like that actual aspect for, at least, I don't know. I'm thinking, I haven't really played with Saruman that much, but Saruman has immobilized, and then he can use his heroic action, heroic channeling, to up that, and to where you can actually take control. And if you were to take control of a hero and say, not necessarily move them away from you, but move them into your hordes of Urukai, like that would be one of the good things to use with when it comes to Saruman. So
absolutely.
But peel back, I guess, the onion a little bit to more of a basic concept for some of the newer players. The Battle Company's book, I feel like, is one of the best books that you can look at and have to first start playing, right? And especially if you just getting into the hobby, you just got the starter set. The starter set already basically has 3 battle companies that you can already use. I know it comes with the Morannon orcs instead of the Mordor orcs necessarily, but I see no issues with having to proxy those guys into some of those Mordor lists to be able to fill out some of those additional evil battle companies. And then obviously you have Rohan in that box set. And then the Army of the Dead, which, by the way, only needs 4 models in the in to make a full battle company, which is just ridiculous to get your head around, at least, and really get games in, especially. And it also opens you up to the scenarios. The 18 scenarios that are within the battle company's book are really pretty relatively simple, relatively straightforward, and you can get a lot of games in a short amount of time. So I definitely recommend that book.
And battle companies is smaller games too. If you didn't know what that was for some of you, but it's still the same rules. It just, would you say, more customizable? It's quicker, smaller games, and you get a little bit more control. So if you like role-playing type games, I've never actually played Dungeons and Dragons, so I can't directly compare it to that, but it kind of, to me, with my limited knowledge of that, would almost be to the point, the equivalent of what Middle-earth Strategy Battle Games has, because you can actually go through, as you play these short, quick games, you get different points and experience points and victory points that you can actually upgrade your characters, and they're named. So if you have, like you're saying, a small army that you're trying to play with, you get to grow, and it kind of evolves your army that you're not stuck with. You could start with that small army, like you're saying, but that small army that you have is not the only army you have. You kind of evolve with it and build with it, so it's still new and different every time out, versus just, all right, I only have 4 models, but every single game is the exact same. Well, with the battle companies, it's not, because your models get new abilities, new characteristics, in which case then the game will keep changing. So that would also be another way to get started easy, get going. You don't have to keep buying the new stuff, because the models you have are going to change a little bit as you get more games under your belt.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other reason why I feel like it's a little bit easier to start with some of these battle companies is I still sometimes have a little hard issues with the heroes and the magical powers, right? And this really allows you to, slow yourself into some of these more hero-like models and getting more in tune with the heroic actions and things like that. But along that line, as you had said, more role-playing like, right? With the name, like, you get to name your characters and kind of create this more of your own little narrative, a little bit of a narrative approach to it than like your standard match play games, right? And actually, I came across, I always try to put little Lord of the Rings puns here and there in our thing with naming certain things, Lord of the Rings and things like that. And I was trying to see if there's something that was like a pun of Nick, your name into the Lord of the Rings. And I was like, oh, let's just Google, does Nick ever show up in Middle-earth? And I happened to come up with this Lord of the Rings fantasy name generator. And what it has is it's got all the different factions. It's even got the Balrog in there. If you wanted to create a Balrog name, you'd click on the Balrog list. It's the name of the website is fantasynamegenerators.com, and then there's a whole Lord of the Rings section. And what happens is you just click on whatever faction you want, and you click on Get Names, and all of a sudden all of these names just pop up. They're not necessarily they're not true to the Lord of the Rings story or anything like that. It just follows things like the spellings of different factions, which I thought was really, really cool. because it's got the Balrog, even the villagers of Bree, the Easterlings, the Farharad, the hobbits, orcs, the Starry, right, the dwarfs, elves, everything. Like, you literally just let's do a quick one here really quick. Let's just click on the Rohirrim, because I'm sure those guys would be easier to say. There's also male names and female names for some of the men factions, right? So
I'm in the Hobbit right now, and we got an Ebrulf Harryfoot. That's a good classic Hobbit name.
Harryfoot, I like it. I bet you can play soccer. So like, I mean, obviously when I click male names for Rohan, Éomer showed up, right? But then there's all these different Hurrimer and Haemod and all these different interesting names that show up. And I thought this was really cool that you could use to, because I'm not really a creative person, really. So that I thought was something. Now I want to create a whole battle company and put some of these names in there. So
yeah, I don't even think that's actually very useful for you, because I think the last time we played battle companies, I'm pretty sure you just ended up with captain, lieutenant, sergeant, that type
Warrior
of stuff.
1, Warrior 2,
Warrior 2, yup, which is fine. I mean, it is. I feel like sometimes I don't have that creativity either. Some people out there are really good at that stuff, but yeah, for those that aren't, or even if you are, it just kind of gives you some ideas too. You can always modify them slightly from what the website's telling you too.
Absolutely. So here, let's open up my battle companies book here really quick. Maybe go over one of the armies. So, as I had said, the Dead of Dunharrow, right? The Army of the Dead, right? So the starting battle company starts with 2 Warriors of the Dead with shield, and then 2 Warriors of the Dead with spear. So, like I said, only 4 models, and this works your way. So the starting set comes up with everything. So you roll reinforcements after every game, pretty much, depending upon how it went. And then, like, these reinforcement rolls would be Warrior of the Dead, Warrior of the Dead with shield, Warrior of the Dead with spear, Warrior of the Dead with spear and shield, which is 1 through 5. Those are the 1 through 5 options. And then 6 is Rider of the Dead. So if you get a Rider of the Dead, then you'd have to buy a new model. Or my favorite thing, I try to proxy whenever possible, and I've seen it happen, is people actually take Riders of Rohan, right, and make them into Army of the Dead-like models, which I've actually seen quite a few of those conversions done, and it actually looks pretty good, because welcome to Games Workshop, where one Rider of the Dead equals about, I think, $20 US right now. So, and they don't always have them in stock, so...
Yeah, that's a special. I think that's special to the Army of the Dead, because if you play the old Minas Tirith like me, I don't really run into that too much. But the cool thing you're talking about proxies is, so I have some of the Osgiliath veteran models. Well, as you play battle companies, you can get wounds on your models, so it is kind of cool too. You can either use something, obviously Minas Tirith has the Osgiliath veterans that you can use for, or you can make your own. But you can take models of certain characters, and you can, if you have one that's similar, especially if it's just a regular, say, knight or warrior of Minas Tirith, where you have a bunch of them, you can make them and customize them, build the model to have a wound, because if it has a leg wound, it might, instead of moving, might be like, what is it, half their normal movement or an inch or two less. It's something along those lines. So that is another cool thing too, as far as proxying or custom models. You can do that stuff, so on the battlefield you can relive that. Okay, whatever you want to call him, Harryfoot, we're going back to our Hobbit here. Harryfoot suffered a wound in the last battle, so now he can only move half his distance. So if you have that model that shows him with a crutch or a bandage or something, it helps you, kind of puts you more into the middle of the battle. It gives you a more of a realistic, because that's the whole thing. The whole point of playing this, I think, is, there's strategy involved to it, but it's kind of just, you let your imagination flow a little bit, jump into the battle, and imagine what some of these guys would be going through the books.
And interesting enough, I'm still walking through some of these profiles. The fun thing is now that you should really get those Knights of Dol Amroth painted up, because I realized that there's a Men of the West battle company, which has some Rohan, some Gondor, and some Knights of Dol Amroth, and I think that would be really cool to try to play.
I'm working on them. They're actually a little bit harder to cut off these sprues than I was expecting, but I'm
Really?
doing it right now as we talk. I am currently right now cutting these off.
It's
awesome. It's not the fine cast stuff. It's whatever this resin is.
It's true resin.
Forge World.
These are the knights that aren't mounted directly from Forge World. So, and what do you have any plans on what kind of blue you might use?
That I still have to look into. So my current selection of blue paints that I have, let me take a look at what I got. Oops, that's the wrong one. Okay, so I have Cantor blue. I have the Fang, which I think has a little bit grayish color to it. I have Magrake blue. Sorry, I'm probably butchering that name.
Craig or something like that. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so those are my main blues. So I got to figure that out, but I know Dolam Roth is actually got, I would almost say it's kind of a royal-ish blue.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's royal, but it's a little bit brighter too. I don't necessarily know what you would.
See, the Fang, I'm pretty sure I gotta do a sample test on these. Cantor blue might be a good base color, is what I might end up doing. The Fang, I believe, has just a little bit of a grayness to it. Either Magrake blue or Cantor blue is what I'm going to do. The blue, I think I'll be okay with. The silver, I'll be okay with. But I do want to try and figure out. I've never had a lot of experience with painting white, surprisingly. But I generally, most of what I've painted, I have a lot of silver in what I've painted. Then I've done Harad, which is red. I've never really done much white.
And they say white and yellow are some of the harder colors. And I know we had just tried out the Marvel game, right? And Daniel had some of those marble-ish looking bases that I believe he used Apothecary White for, which is a contrast paint. And it's got more of a grayish hue to it, but I thought it looked pretty darn good. I'm excited to try to do some White City walls with it at some point.
Yeah, it would actually look really, really good because it does add that little bit of gray. So especially doing a city wall, you're going to have a little bit off white color to it. I'm just afraid with Dolam Roth, I just kind of get a little bit picky with this stuff. But to me, I really like the army. I like the blue. I like silver because if you saw most of the models I paint, I have way too much silver, and you get to a point where you're like, all right, I'm done painting silver. But it's just there's something about having a nice clean white pop that really makes a model look good. And I think that's where if you start to look at some of these painters out there, the guys that can handle white, I think are head and shoulders above other people because it's just something about white to get that clean because you expect white to be clean. You expect it to be clean. Right. So it's just an extra element that I have yet to tackle much. I've done little bits here and there. Some of my Necron models I painted, I did have some where they had some parts of them that were white. But as far as truly trying to match white, where some of these on their shields and their banners and some of their, I don't know what you call it, capes, cloaks, whatever they have, there's some white to them. So we'll see. I'm a little intimidated by it, but I'm going to give it a shot. It just might take me a couple chances or a couple test pieces before I'm happy with it.
Awesome. I know in my experiences with white is that it looks great. I start like a nice base coat of white, and then all of a sudden I wash the whole model. And then the white obviously is no longer white after you put some Agrax or some Gnome oil on it, right? And then how do you go back to then highlighting it appropriately so that it basically, I'm almost like you don't wash the white almost in a weird way, but then it doesn't blend as well. So that's just my quick little tip that I have for you is to figure out, all right, once you put it on there, once you wash it, then really trying to tidy up what it looks like. And I think you need to keep building it with layer paints after you put the wash on to really bring back that white tone.
It's odd too because I have seen different techniques. Everybody does it a little bit different. Some I think do similar to what you're talking. I've seen it where people will dirty it up, but somehow they're able to come back with edge highlights and stuff, whether it's dry brush or really good edge highlighting, and somehow they can take it from it's weird. it's almost like you're playing tricks on your eyes, that your model is actually a dirty white, but if you put the right shades of white together and mix it just the right way, that individually each one of those colors would not look very white, but it's somehow that I've seen a couple people do this where it's almost like you trick the eyes. I don't know how. I have to look that up more, and I think that might be a little bit beyond my abilities at this point, but I might give it a shot. It's either that or I'll just do the layer method like you're talking about, just nice thin layers and slowly build up to where I want it to be.
Yeah, I don't know. The thing about me is I like painting orcs and things like that because they don't necessarily need to be the cleanest, so you just base coat them, put on a little bit of wash, a little bit of dry brush highlights, and call it good. I don't even get to the eyes really on a lot of things. I'm a little too shaky for some of the details, but also I get a lot of things commission painted too, which I still think isn't. You don't have to be embarrassed to get anything commission painted because it also gives you the ability to look at what other people do and kind of try to recreate it. So
there's generally always somebody better than you out there, and it never hurts to, whether it's like you're saying, commission paint it so that you can talk to them, they can explain how they painted it, or just having it done so that you can see it in your hand without even talking to them. Like everybody, it doesn't hurt at all. Pay the money. Think of it that it's almost like a painting lesson, in a sense. You're paying for a painting lesson.
Yep, exactly. And just put one out there. Gold Standard Studios is the one that I use heavily. They're Kenosha, Wisconsin area based, and yeah, they are great at telling you exactly what they did for your models, so that you can kind of recreate it and play around with it. So let's talk about the Silmarillion for a little bit. So I'd already talked last week that I was, at least this is what I was listening to.
It's been a really long time since I read the Silmarillion, I'll just tell you that much. So you're going to really test my memory here in this conversation.
That's good. That's just this is just what I've been listening to lately as I've been doing some of my painting, and I've really been painting scenery and things like that. We can post some of that on our Instagram page. Actually, one of them was already out there, I think. So the little arch gateway that we put out there, but.
Yeah, I think you put one on the Smithy.
Yes, that's right. And I think I tagged the Stooges. So
I believe so.
But something that piqued my interest, right, is when Middle Earth was created, right, and when Sauron was coming to power, and they sent the Starry, which is obviously Gandalf, Saruman, Radagast, right? But there was actually two other wizards that are just named as the Blue Wizards. And you don't really hear anything about it. You kind of look it up, and Tolkien actually made like a essay on these two wizards, but it still didn't really say much. They were nameless. The only reason we ever hear about them is in the Hobbit films when Gandalf says, "I don't think I remember their names anymore." And I have all sorts of different Gandalf models that I have never painted before. And I was thinking about actually making Blue Wizards just as like a little open play, kind of what if these people were here, or what, like. And the other thing is the what's the Fellowship book? Not the Fellowship book. The book that they just came out with. Not Scourging of the Shire either. It's escaping me right now. The newest.
The Ringbearer's Quest?
Yes.
Quest of the Ringbearer?
Yes, I had thought that this would be kind of a cool idea to put one of these maybe in there and kind of make a Gandalf the Blue. Just because I like the color blue, but also because it would somewhat fit into the genre of the Silmarillion. And then the other thing that I thought about doing is kind of an open play of, you never really hear, at least in the books necessarily or in the movies, what happens after the ring is destroyed, right? The movies obviously kind of set it up as, Aragorn becomes king and it's kind of over, right? And obviously we know from the books that Saruman actually isn't killed, right, by falling however many stories down, but that he actually comes and attacks the Shire, right? And which is obviously the Scourging of the Shire book, which makes complete sense. But there's still evil lurking in Middle Earth after the ring is destroyed. There's still, if you remember all of those orcs that kind of run away at the end of the movie, there's still things that need to be done and things that happen. And Aragorn has a son, and Éomer has kids and things like that. And obviously we know it does end up. If you look at some of the wikis of like the Fourth Age, because the Fourth Age is obviously after the ring was destroyed, we get to meeting some of these offspring and things like that, which there's no stories on them, but they're just purely names from Tolkien's work, and I think it'd be really cool to run kind of some of those skirmishes of what actually happened after the ring. And this is where my creative juices have to start flowing. But I just sometimes
when you get into the point even with Gondor, I always thought it was interesting that I believe what happens after all that, Aragorn becomes king, but then you look, he's got all the, I don't know what you want to call it, forget the technical term, not warden or whatever, but like you have Faramir is still put in power, you still have Prince Imrahil, I believe, because Éowyn, she marries Faramir, I believe.
Yep.
So you go down the list, all these people that helped out in the battle, Aragorn gives them positions of power. And my impression is they all kind of got along, for considering, everybody gives a bad rap in Lord of the Rings to the race of men. But it seems like it's from the limited stuff I know, they sure do seem to get along fairly well. And that's something that interested me, because obviously, why would you need all these people here helping you out and put them in positions of power? Because these are all warriors. There's still stuff going on. So yeah, I would absolutely love to know what happens after the ring's gone and look into that. And obviously, the Scourging of the Shire is one that we actually have good material for, so that's the easy one. But it'd be kind of cool to reimagine some of this other stuff going on too.
Absolutely, yeah. Because obviously Éomer then becomes the king of Rohan, right? And you never really see him as a king. So Aragorn's son Eldarion, I believe is his name, and he actually reunites some of the kingdoms after even apparently then, which is in this Fourth Age wiki that I'm looking at. But I'm still not, obviously, I could recreate the battles, the true historic battles of fiction.
In Middle-earth. Middle Earth, yes. Okay. It's okay. You're just fully into Middle-earth.
I'm fully in it, but
in
like, I could never get old of doing that, but at the same time, obviously we've seen these scenarios before, and it'd be kind of cool just to make up some scenarios and other things like that. Like even if you look at like the Isengard versus Rohan battles that kind of happened. What is that? The Isen River, right? You don't always necessarily see what happened there. It'd be kind of cool to imagine like some of the missions that the Uruk-hai had to kind of either stop Rohan and things like that. You don't really see much of that or hear much of that. So it'd be really kind of cool to kind of put your own spin on some of the battles that happened.
There is a group out there. I don't know if you know this. I'll have to get a link for this one. There's a group out there. What you're talking about is all this narrative play stuff. There is a group out there that's Lord of the Rings dedicated narrative play.
Okay.
Which is awesome. I mean, why wouldn't you? I know some people play it for strategy, but why wouldn't you want to go into all this stuff? You have all the stuff available in front of you. It doesn't take much to go a little extra step and think, okay, how do we think this would happen? Okay, we think this would happen, or this is how this went. All right, let's play it out. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and I know actually even some people are going to the extent of looking at like the Lord of the Rings risk board, right? And trying to come up with their own gaming situations to do this huge scenario across basically the War of the Ring from Rise of the Witch King, Battle for Middle-earth, right? The PC game. Using that kind of map, trying to come up with some sort of resource base and balancing it out appropriately, and basically recreate your whole the whole War of the Ring. And the other thing that's interesting is, like, if we didn't have the ring, it wouldn't be Middle-earth, right? Like, I've always tried to think about, well, what if there wasn't a ring and they were just, kind of fighting each other for, something different, right? Like, I always thought that would be interesting to come at, like, a different angle, right? Like more and I feel like a lot of Tolkien's work was related to, like, historic events, right? Like, even the Silmarillion, like, the creating of Middle-earth is almost Bible-like in a way, right? And, like, I know a lot of his things came from, like, the world wars, right? And some people even say Middle-earth is supposedly supposed to represent Europe in a way. But I just always thought it'd be interesting what if there was a different conflict?
Correct. It could. It absolutely could. I mean, how long... Think about Lord of the Rings, okay? Yeah, that ring was out there. Nobody really knew about the ring. Yet, all of these, if you want to call them countries and races and civilizations, whatever you had existing in Middle-earth, people still had armies.
Yeah, right. And think about this. The ring was in that river for 2,500 years before, Gollum even picked it up. Smeagol even picked it up out of that water, and then went into those mountains for 500 more years. 3,000 years that just have not even been, that nobody really knows what's happened. And that's why I'm so excited. So excited for this Amazon show. I really hope it's good. I really hope they go the extra mile and get some good content out there.
They paid enough money, they better do it.
Exactly.
They did say, I wonder if they're going to change their name, though. I did recently see that Frodo himself, Elijah Wood, did make a comment that he thinks that they should stop calling it the Lord of the Rings show, because it is not the Lord of the Rings.
The Middle-earth show, essentially.
Yes. It's not, because Lord of the Rings is very specific. The Lord of the Rings is the Third Age. It's about the ring, destroying the ring. Whereas when you think Lord of the Rings, you know specifically it's books named the Lord of the Rings. This isn't about the books. Right. Which I totally agree with. Let's come up with a good, but I'm sure they'll do it because that's the mainstream thing, but let's come up with a good one. Yeah, Middle-earth. Something with Middle-earth. Get people invested more than just... I am interested to see, because like I said, there's so many stories out there. Basically, that's what's happening with this movie or TV show, is they're coming up with new material. So it is exciting just to develop the world more than what it was. Tolkien did a great job, and now I think you have new people out there that have new ideas, and I think there's a lot of potential for all the stuff, whether it be something we're playing we can make up, movies, TV shows.
Yeah, so they call it the Lord of the Rings TV series, but then they also say the streamer has confirmed an official description of the Middle-earth adventure series. So I guess that's already been thought of slightly, but that makes sense. Middle-earth adventure series. I like it. And so I guess we're winding down here on some time, but I just want to leave all of our viewers with the fact that check out that Discord, because it's got pretty much everything you could ever need or want to have to play the game. I know a lot of people ask on those pages, can I have the profile for this, or can I have the profile for that? That Discord's got literally everything, so I would definitely hope you guys check out the Discord. We'll make sure we put it when we post the video. And then also definitely check out the Battle Companies series, right? And definitely see if that's something you're interested in, because I definitely know we got a bunch of games in so little time, and it does definitely bring in that more role-playing type thing that I'm sure a lot more people would enjoy. So until next time, or I should say, come back to you at the turn of the tide, or next week, whichever comes sooner, and have a great time painting and playing. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks for listening.